Hello, everybody. You can hear my voice is already a little bit scratched, and it's just not because of all the drugs and the alcohol in the city of Amsterdam. It's just by having all meeting friends and having all these chit chats. So I would love, let's say, maybe to delegate these things. So I will do these two experts do the talk and let you do the Q&A. So then I can, let's say, reduce a little bit the impact on my voice. So it's great to see all of you here. I hope you're in good conditions, you're fully energized. And in the last talk, we have seen something about we're in control. It is simple. Holy cow. Now I'm going to take you to a journey where we are not in control, where things are complicated. So let's talk about energy. You remember the Ukraine war or the attack of the Hamas to Israel. Guess what happens to energy prices? Boom, skyrocketing from one day to the other, from one second to the other. Prices, oil, gas, energy, electricity are exploding. And, well, what should you do about it? And I don't have a clue. But let's listen to these ladies because they are the experts, so they can tell us. And probably so to answer the difficult questions and the simple questions, probably I'm happy to introduce Sara Hoefkens from Schneider Electric and Edina Csongor from Smurfit. And probably they can introduce themselves a little bit more in detail rather than I can do, what they're doing and what they're responsible for. And then probably I would love to guide you through the journey as well. What the heck is energy procurement, or is it just a normal, ordinary category? What about maybe the impact on risk, on sustainability, on CO2? And then what about all the regulations in the European Union? Yesterday we had a great talk from the French minister and from the former French minister of finance, or not of finance, or of business, about the CSRD, about the new reporting schemes in terms of double materiality that we have to report effective January next year. And we had the investors' view of venture capitals and banks looking at your reportings if you are sustainable. And of course, energy has an extreme impact on this. So I would love to hand over to Sara and to Edina, and maybe starting with my silly little child question. Well, energy procurement, that cannot be that difficult, can it? So Sara, please, maybe 2 or 3 words to your introduction, and then maybe you can explain the complicated things to me as a simple-minded professor.
Yeah, thank you, Karsten, and great to have such a big audience in the room. So my name is Sara Hoefkens, and I work in Schneider's sustainability business as a principal. Most of you may know Schneider as a specialist in energy and industrial automation and building management systems. Sustainability business in Schneider, I'd say, is probably for some of you one of Schneider's best kept secrets. It's we're not always that known, but we are a group of 3,000 experts worldwide. And we serve Schneider Electric as a group ourselves, because Schneider, as many of you may know, is leading in sustainability. It's really also the ambition to be an impact company. And we seek to take our lessons learned in the journey that we've made so far and that we are still on. We seek to share those lessons learned with our customers. So how do we do that? We work with our customers to develop impact strategies. We help our customers to take impactful actions on the back of those strategies as they relate to decarbonization ambitions, but also managing energy in a high cost pressure environment, very well explained by Karsten. And we do all of that with data. So everything we do is underpinned by data and digital. And this is sustainability business, and of course, in supporting our customers with consultative and solutions and ongoing advisory on these topics, we also help them to find the right solutions, more from a hardware perspective, where Schneider has an array of options that customers can choose from. When it comes to energy procurement specifically, so this is on the back of the events happening in Ukraine and also last week in Hamas, it has it has learned all of us that energy is a super volatile commodity. So what we have seen across 2021 and 2022 were major spikes in gas prices and electricity prices, because the two are inevitably correlated. And it was a wake-up call for many industrials and large commercial organizations. It was a wake-up call in the sense that it learned us that we have to have strategies in place that allow us to act in an agile way, very quickly, and really fasten our decision-making processes. Lessons learned, and being proactive, being able to be super resilient when those situations happen is key. Buying energy is not simple. You have a commodity part, you have a non-commodity part, there's invoices to review, there's risk to manage, there's contracts to negotiate, there's exposure to track and monitor, there's market intelligence to follow, because energy procurement operates differently from market to market, from region to region. So it's a very complex category, and it's absolutely different than any other category that procurement leads are managing.
So I cannot just put all my eggs in one basket, use economies at scale and say, give me the best price. Exactly.
And I think, Edina, you can speak from experience to that, because this is your daily bread and butter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll basically just follow up from Sara. First, I'll just give a quick introduction. I've been working in energy and energy procurement for 9 years now, and currently I'm responsible for Smurfit Kappa's global energy procurement strategy and renewable strategy. And just to put things into perspective, in case you're not familiar with Smurfit Kappa, they're one of the biggest paper and packaging companies. And in terms of energy, they're essentially paper, pulp, and packaging are one of the top 5 most energy-intensive industries, which means that basically the decisions we're making on energy procurement are extremely important and can make or break the business profitability. So in terms of energy procurement, even to exclude everything that's going on and what we've touched on already in terms of price volatility and the current sustainability-related environment, even when I started, energy was always complex to manage. If you consider the procurement process, there can be up to 25 different qualitative and quantitative inputs and categories that we need to measure and weigh in order to make an informed decision. So that's kind of our starting ground. And then indeed, as you both touched on already, we now have the element of sustainability and decarbonization strategy feeding into energy procurement and the overall energy management strategy that we need to manage. And then secondly, essentially ever since 2021, the world got turned upside down. I think in procurement, we feel that everywhere. But for energy, this is practically very, very different. How we need to manage it, it's very volatile. And also prices are extremely different and way higher than they used to be. So put it into perspective for you from my industry's perspective, if you look at a container board pricing, so think of just a simple box that you would be moving from A to B when you're moving houses, the price of energy represented approximately 30% of that box's pricing in terms of material input before the crisis, so let's say Q1 of 2021, while Q4 of last year, that price grew to approximately 65%. I'm talking about European averages industry-wide, so not Smurfit Kappa specific numbers, of course, but you can imagine that this this category, which was already very important, has become even more important with even more eyes on it from a business perspective, and I would say also from the C-suite perspective.
So I would love to know a little bit more about our audience. So I have learned that we have got pulp and paper, we have got packaging, we have got maybe, let's say, high energy consuming industries. Anybody in the room from different industries, let's say, where you say, well, energy has a huge impact on our cost of goods? Maybe just raising the hands to see how many are around here. Okay, well, so might be interesting, let's say, for the Q&A session. For the others, you say, well, we don't, it's, I don't know, maybe only 1% of our COGS, or we don't know how much energy it really impacts our bottom line, our contribution margin. Yeah, of course, nobody. It's not like at my students, if I say, who will show up for it? I don't know. Nobody will show up, of course. Come on, that's okay. All right, we were talking about fast decision making. I was really surprised when we had our chit-chat before. Normally, you get an order, you evaluate the order, you have a look at different suppliers, maybe you get your approval from whatever level of responsibility, and sometimes this can take some time. I think probably for energy procurement, you have weeks or days or months to do some buying on the market. Is that true?
Well, not anymore necessarily. So you also need to consider where you are, because unfortunately energy is really country specific. So you can't really also think about it as I'll just procure for a pan-European agreement and that will basically the best way forward. We're kind of like consolidating everything under one supplier. And especially under the current market volatility, offer windows have reduced from weeks to sometimes an intraday signature. So you get the offer in the morning and then you have to sign it by end of day. And coupled with that, also the cost of the offer increased significantly, sometimes doubled or even tripled, depending on which market we're talking about, which means that the approval level it needs to go up to get us to actually agree to the deal has also grown. So that means that we need to basically create outputs for senior management to make really quick decisions on the spot, sometimes in 1 or 2 days' time. So we really need good data input, but as well really nicely, visually, easily represented output in order to facilitate that decision making.
I do not hope that I exaggerate too much, but I think I captured something that we have maybe the offer which is valid for a couple of hours. We're not talking about days or weeks. So when we're talking about agile decision making, this is what it's all about, because otherwise the price is already gone. It's not valid anymore. So we have seen high volatility, complex market structure, and it's maybe not only about let's say all the volumes, but it's about timing, it's about different markets, it's about grid and utilization. Probably there is lots in terms of renewables. So how can I put this into my equation?
Yeah, so I think when the practice of sourcing energy has undergone several transformations in the past year, very much pushed by the need for organizations to move through the green transition. And this is enforced by stakeholder pressure from the business itself, from investors, from communities, even from employees. The younger generations that we hire into our business are super passionate about sustainability and the planet, and they absolutely want to work for an organization that represents their values. So we're seeing businesses set themselves off on that green transition path. So that also means that for procurement leaders, the choices when it comes to procuring energy have become much wider. And there's also a mandate given to procurement to decarbonize Scope 1 and Scope 2. Many options that are out there, but as we see demand growing in the market for renewable options, and renewable options span from GEOs into on-site renewable generation, into the more complex mechanisms such as power purchase agreements and virtual power purchase agreements. So as we see more and more businesses look for those more complex options, we've also seen that this market has moved from being a predominantly buyers-driven market to more of a sellers-driven market. The dynamics are changing a lot. Sellers, of course, this is due to the explosion of demand for renewable energy on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's also reinforced by the fact that the pipeline of developers is under pressure due to the inflationary environment that we are still in, due to supply chain shortages, due to more complex financing terms, and actually also longer permitting cycles. So we foresee that there's going to continue to be a shortage of renewable assets for those organizations that seek for these solutions. So my advice would be, if you're still sourcing GEOs, and you can source this in a bundled way through green tariff from your energy supplier, but you can also go for unbundled GEOs, these prices are expected to increase. So as you are managing your mix of energy, grid sourced or renewable, there's a balance to be struck. Again, data and digital are key to having those insights and to enable you to make those decisions. And in Schneider Electric, we have Resource Advisor is our key platform that enables our customers to pull in all of that data and make those informed and reliable decisions. So GEOs are going to be on the rise in price, so we expect to see more and more businesses go for PPAs. However, if for those businesses that seek for those mechanisms, be sure to be ready to make those transactions. Because similarly so, when it comes to making a decision on signing your grid-sourced energy supply agreements, it's a matter of days. For PPAs, you have more time, but still be transaction ready, because it involves a whole set of stakeholders, from finance to accounting to treasury to procurement to sustainability. And these decisions are complex and not easy made, but speed is of the essence.
Right. You have mentioned Scope 1 and 2 emissions, and what I'm telling my students, and please, Jerry, let's say, prove me wrong if I'm just telling some lies here. Let's say, as far as I remember my lectures, so probably something like 80% are sitting in Scope 3, so upstream, downstream, in most of these supply chains. So probably you help your customers to evaluate these as well, or I think. Edina, probably some of your customers are asking you, let's say, to deliver on their Scope 3, right?
Yes, exactly. So I'm not sure, Sara, if you want to.
No, go ahead.
So indeed, firstly, we have our own pressures of having to decarbonize our Scope 1, 2, and 3. But the additional interesting point that you touched on is that we are essentially in a large supply chain, which means that other Scope 3 will be our Scope 2. And we're getting pressured more and more to essentially report on our Scope 2 numbers, Scope 1 and Scope 2 numbers to our customers. And it requires more, again, data sharing, information sharing, and more partnership with our customers to make sure that basically not only do we satisfy our targets, but that we help our clients satisfy their targets. So it's becoming even more complicated in that sense, and the sourcing of GEOs, as Sara touched on, has become increasingly important. And then we also need to consider the changing legislations around GEOs. So essentially, both in CDP, RE100, for example, the type of GEOs that would be eligible or considered renewable, certifiable, are becoming more and more strict. So we have to consider that when making an informed decision, and also we have to consider it not only for ourselves, but what are our clients looking for, what are the schemes that they're reporting to. So more partnership, more information sharing, and just more complex decision making.
And you touched on some regulatory issues, and let's say talking to some companies or some of my clients, some people are quite relaxed or looking back and say, come on, all this CSRD or German supply chain due diligence, it's just for the big companies. We're a small, medium enterprise. We are not directly affected. But probably if you are a supplier in the automotive industry, in the packaging, pulp, paper industry, or in other industries, I'm pretty sure either your customers or your investors will ask you pretty soon about CSRD, about double materiality, not just to know what is the profit of my product, but what is maybe the carbon footprint, what is the energy consumption, what is maybe the impact on society. And they do not want to have some nice PowerPoint slides with we will do something, but they really want to make it quantifiable, measurable, and it's not a kind of a nice to have, it's mandatory. So we have to report it. It has to be reported in an electronic version to the competent authorities, and probably the CSRD will be effective January next year. So if you want to report something by the end of 2024, probably you have to be ready to set up all the reportings. Holy shit, which suppliers are affected? What should they report? How should they report? You should prepare this now. And if I just have a look, today we have the, 11th? 12th? 12th, Today we have the 12th of October. My wife knows, let's say, in how many days Christmas is coming, so I'm more this kind of last-minute man, so I'm going to buy the Christmas presents maybe on starting 20th of December, but if I would be in a company position, then probably you should already do your preparatory work right now in order to be prepared to do the reporting. And maybe, Sara, you can expand a little bit on this. So let's say what is expected, or how you can help your clients in do these, or what is coming to us and what needs to be done.
Yeah, and with that, you really touch on the other side of the dilemma that businesses are in today. So there's an energy crisis and there's an ongoing climate crisis. So, I think the procurement function and organization has a key role to play, because procurement really touches on both sides of that dilemma, and in that sense can really make an impact. So yes, CSRD is coming, corporate sustainability reporting directive, which sits under the umbrella of EU taxonomy and which follows on TCFD. So there's a big alphabet soup out there, sometimes tough to find your way into it, but ultimately every organization here in the room will be subject to it. So like Karsten mentioned, it starts in 2025. Large organizations will have to start reporting on 2024 base year. The year after, the mid-sized organizations are going to be in the boat, and the year after that, the small and medium enterprises are going to board the compliance scheme as well. So it's not just for the large organizations out there; it's for everyone. So again, data are going to be pivotal in reporting into this compliance scheme. So it's the scheme, in a nutshell, requires businesses to report both on their quantitative and qualitative KPIs. There's different categories in it, and it's important that businesses identify the ecosystem in their organization in terms of identifying the places where data that is needed to report already is available, making sure that that data has the right level of quality and is precise and accurate, and then stitching all those systems together, and then from there identify the gaps that may exist and feed those gaps by connecting to other systems or finding other ways to collect the data. And I've seen some great solutions here in the past few days. So all the technology is out there to make it happen, but it's key that the technological foundation to make this work drives collaboration across the enterprise. Data is foundational. Software is needed because software processes the data and dissects and analyzes the data. But you still need the human interaction around it to drive behavioral change in your own organization and with your suppliers as well. So in the context also of Scope 3 and value chain decarbonization for your upstream supply chain, it's key that suppliers understand what this is about, what does it mean for them to really drive that engagement. So supplier engagement, supplier segmentation has been talked about as well in the previous session, and then really providing your suppliers also the digital tools to understand where they are at in the journey so that you can embark on the journey together. So one of the digital tools we provide to suppliers is for them to go calculate their own emissions, define their own ambitions, and to then also even provide mechanisms where we bring suppliers together in so-called aggregated renewable energy solutions, aggregated PPA. So we've done that, for example, for Walmart, where we brought together their key suppliers across a number of PPAs, where you have cohorts of suppliers signing up, decarbonizing in this way their scope 2, which is in turn the scope 3 of Walmart. So by identifying those joint goals and ambitions, there was a question asked in the previous session around how do you incentivize suppliers to really take action. This is an example of how to do that, because it adds and drives value both for yourself as well as for your suppliers.
Sara, as you mentioned, it will not just be a tick box to say, are you compliant, yes or no? Do you, let's say, comply to human rights or labor rights, or tick, tick, tick? So you really have to feed in numbers, and it will be audited by your investors or in your annual reports and things like this. So I see that our clock is already turning from green to yellow. So this means we still have got, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes to go. So before I open up the audience for your questions, what are the 2 or 3 takeaways? So if I leave this room, what should I remember? Edina.
So I would say number 1, which kind of resonates with the whole conference beyond energy, is data accuracy, but then also connecting data points. So for energy, we really need to slice and dice the data differently depending on if an engineer is reading it for on-site efficiency reasons, if I'm reading it for procurement reasons, or if someone in our reporting team is reading it and trying to comply with one of the many regulations or one of the voluntary reporting schemes that we're looking at. That being one. Second one, essentially, we need to also engage all stakeholders across the business, which means we have way more exposure to the C-level, which is a great thing. They're way more engaged in decision-making, but more eyes on energy, which, of course, adds some pressures to our day-to-day life in the business. And thirdly, which is, again, I think a broad scheme in the conference, is the importance of being in line with upcoming sustainability regulations, as well as making sure that whatever you're doing within the business that's plugged into your company's decarbonization strategy. There's a lot of not only sticks but carrots, essentially a lot of incentives to help the organization and the world. If I can be a little bit more, positive in that sense. So it's good to keep a lookout for what's to come, because it can actually benefit the business.
Sara, what will be your 3 takeaways, or maybe 2, whatever?
Yeah, I think Edina mentioned a lot there. I think for me, the 3, with the session, the theme for this session in mind, the 3 key takeaways would be, for me, volatility is there to stay. So it won't go away. Keep monitoring closely your risk exposure, geopolitical events. So volatility, managing energy crisis is there to say. On the other hand, I think we'll continue to see evolution and transformation in regulation, which impacts ways in which businesses have to comply, have to report on their decarbonization actions. Also taking those actions, there are great schemes out there. The Green EU deal is supporting the green transition towards renewables. So I think pressure from stakeholders and investor sentiment on carbon is massive. So pressure from different sides is there to stay, and data is key. And I think bringing all of that together, maybe the third takeaway for me would be that we are going to see, so some years ago we were talking about the rise of the prosumer, right? So businesses not only consuming energy, but also producing energy. So as we see more and more renewables coming into the mix, businesses now also looking for battery storage of their energy, on-site renewables, introducing PPAs, VPPAs, all that also to the benefit of decarbonizing own operations and value chains. But that to me is also, we now hear talks about the flexumer. So there's another, we have gone from consumer to prosumer, and we're now going into the era of the flexumer, where organizations will be able to find new routes of value creation by showing flexibility towards the grid, because we all know that grids in Europe will have to optimize and scale up. So yeah, I think we're going to see a shift coming. But in the odds of change, there's lots of opportunity.
Of course. So even though the organizers will kill me, I allow one question. Please.
Taking into consideration this scenario that is so complex and volatile, what is the leverage that a company may have or not when still trying to buy energy?
Well, as Sara said, it's difficult because essentially it's the suppliers really driving the market for energy now. If you have a lot of load, that normally helps. So, except in certain regions. So for example, last year we have seen that actually having a lot of load can be actually a difficulty because of the scarcity. So I would say it's really a supplier's market. Having, for example, a consultant help you, knowing the market, knowing the best suppliers is one element. So having a partner like Schneider Electric, as well as the load normally, but last year even that was basically not the case given the market complexities.
All right, so thank you very much, and take the opportunity to grab these experts before they are leaving, so then you can ask all the other questions that you probably have. So thank you very much, it was my pleasure.